Hey yo, what it did, y'all? If you're new here, my name is No Name. Weird, I know. Otherwise, what's good, y'all? Let's get right into it. Time to talk about Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice, otherwise known as Frost, which sounds really weird because every time I hear somebody say Frost, I think they're saying Frost, like Frost Mage or something, and I get confused. But this skill is sweet, and it's what this character was going to be originally. If you haven't seen previously, I have a video on the channel about playing Blight of Contagion as my re-roll into SSF because I just love Blight of Contagion, and I was planning on farming that character to make this character, right? That was the plan, 1-to-1 conversion there. Shout out to my boy Ice who recommended it to me. And this skill is, it's taking the league by storm. I don't know if it's necessarily the best build of the league, but it was definitely one of the coolest things to come out of what was added this league, and I'm actually really excited to talk about it, right? Before I get into it, I do want to note, like, not my build originally, right? In case somebody's like, oh, you didn't create this build. Yeah, I know. Even if I were to, like, never have been online, my homeboy told me about the idea, like, on day one of the league when he saw the neck. So, not my build, but I have some twists on it that I like to make the character more comfortable. And if you want to see the version of the character that I'm basing it off of, especially if you're in SSF, Manny's version of the character looks really nice. There's some things that I have to tweak off of because I don't, it's further scaled up than my character and has some low comfort things. But otherwise, very cool version of the character. Check that one out as well. Check him out. Well, peeps. Now, that said, let me talk about the build. So, Frost. It's a weird skill. It's not new to this league. In case you're like, man, I've never heard of this. It must be new to this league. No, there were no transfigure gems added this league. What this actually is instead, well, no lab transfigure gems, right? We have to chart the skills. But this skill was added previously, but it has a big fucking problem. What's the problem, you ask? So, FR traditionally deals chaos damage to you when you cast it. That still remains. FR also wants you to scale your survivability stats for damage. In the case of base FR, that is life and ES. In the case of Soul Sacrifice, it is just ES. Okay, interesting. So I don't really want my life, but I have to deal with the chaos damage we take on cast. Surely I click CI, right? And I just become immune to that. Wrong. Because Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice costs life instead of mana, like original FR does. So it was pretty much deemed bordering on unplayable because if you're taking chaos damage, but you have to maintain your life and you can't zero out the cost, then you have to either use Chevron's Wrappings, which has no ES on it, basically, or you're like playing this weird hybrid character with an excessively large life pool that's doing nothing but survivability, and that's disgusting. The point of a build like this is to scale survivability and get damage for it for free, and vice versa, right? Like, that's disgusting. And that's where Whispers of Infinity comes in. This amulet is ridiculous. You're seeing it used in all types of different ways, but I really like the way that it's used in this build because it just takes a skill that had a completely like a gaping problem with its design. Not design, it's a limitation that you're supposed to work around that balances the skill. But this unique item completely eradicates that. Huge fan of the idea. Granted, it's a little cringe, but hey, look, it's cool. It's a cool interaction. Where the line at the bottom states that skills cost energy shield instead of life or mana. So now we don't have a life cost. We have an ES cost, and we take chaos damage on cast, and we scale ES for damage. So we click CI and build our ES as high as possible. Easy game, done. Also comes with other useful stats for this build, mainly the flat ES. It's a lot of flat ES to have on an amulet side. It's kind of like how Edziri's Foible gives a lot of mana for Archmage characters. A similar idea. And then there's this reduced mana stat. And there's an attack stat on it. The reduced mana stat is actually relevant. And we're going to talk about that in a moment here. Quick reminder to subscribe to the channel just because, we're almost at 3K and that would be awesome. And if I hit 3K since the time of recording, still subscribe anyways because that would be awesome. Turn notification on so you know when we're posting more. Anyways, back to the video. So the other really cool new thing is Coiling Whisper. It's a unique ring that was added this patch that gives you access to Soul Eater. Soul Eater, if you're not super familiar with the details of exactly what it is, right? It is 5% attack and cast speed and 1% character size per stack. You can get up to 45 stacks as a player. And also as an enemy, actually. And enemies get, I believe it's 2% DR per stack. We don't get that, unfortunately. That's why the enemy Soul Eater is so tanky, and I'm not always, right? I don't get 2% DR per stack. Otherwise, we'd be bordering on unkillable. But the 225% cast speed that this will offer, and attack speed, is extremely valuable. But we only get those souls when we have our curses almost expire. And then we also don't actually get any effect of our curses or our hexes because they are, enemies are unaffected by them. But it means we can hex them. This also works on hexproof, by the way. Hexproof is unaffected by hexes and not actually immune to curses. Immune to curses, we do not get our soul generation on. So be wary of that. But what this means is that we just need to get a curse with turbo low duration. And luckily for us, there's one that's just within reach under normal circumstances. Temporal Chains is 5 seconds at base. Hex Touch at base, if you don't level and quality it, this is what at base means as well for Temp Chains, is minus 50% duration, like reduced duration. And then there's less duration support, which at 2020 is a 59% less. Combining the three of those with just the notable of window of opportunity, nothing else, will get you to just around 0.7 seconds of duration. And that is actually low enough to make it like a reasonable-ish thing to sustain. Especially with the newly added Bladefall of Charthus, which we'll talk about that in a second because I have a section for that. But note that there. Now, personally, I'm playing a crit build. Waiting 0.63 seconds to kill an enemy just ain't happening. Especially if I'm using Bladefall of Charthus to trigger mine. If I'm in melee range of the enemy, I'm right clicking and it's dying. So I needed to reduce the duration further. There's a couple options here. If you path all the way to the window of opportunity, you can get another 10% reduced duration just from the small passes on that side of the thing, as well as, you can even click the percent less duration mastery if you really need it or really want it to get it even further down, 0.54, looking at even sub 0.5. And that's pretty cool. I hate the pathing on that. So instead, for me, I put on a time clasp. I sacrificed all the other value my second ring could bring for now in order to just have better duration, better feeling clear. And I will deal with the repercussions of these actions at a later date. It is what it is, right? Long term, you use a reflecting mist on a delve ring. So if you're in trade and you're looking at playing this character, that's what you should do. You should just buy a reflecting misted delve ring. Delve has a modifier. Curses have increased duration. Reflecting mist will, it has a multiplier it puts on the stat, and then one gets it inverted, one gets it regular. So the inverted one for that, if it comes out well, is a perfect ring for this because then you can even drop window opportunity or time class altogether. Also, you can corrupt this stupid ring for this build because we don't need the simplicity at all. Chaos Rise is obviously pointless for us. As far as how to trigger this, to actually use the setup, because I mentioned the 3 supports, but you have to still link something in to use it. I'm using Bladefall of Charthus, like I mentioned earlier. You just need to make sure that your mana is low to keep the activation rate, and you need to keep an eye on your activation rate of Bladefall of Charthus versus 90% of your curse's duration to make sure that it actually is still working. Hydrosphere is also a pretty cool option that I've seen, especially for if you want it off of more of a range. A friend of mine was using Hydrosphere because he was doing this in Sanctum. Getting up close and waiting for Bladefall of Charthus to fall on the target, not really an option. Just throw a Hydrosphere at them. Problem solved, right? That's another way to do it. You can also use things like Cracklance of Branching is something I've seen, which is surprisingly effective. It sounds weird, but the skill just covers so much area with no investment that it actually is a pretty good option for applying a curse to a mass of things to get your Soul Eater stacks going. And then, once you have 225% cast speed, it's free to recast that every so often, right? It's worth noting, by the way, before I move on from the Coiling Whisper section, 2 things. 1, this can be used on a massive variety of builds. This is not just a cast thing, right? It's attack and cast speed. EA Ballistas, maybe you're playing a bow build. There's playing a melee character. Why not, right? And so figuring out the way that you want to trigger your curse on hit is, up to you. I've seen Fire Burst used to do it. I've seen Bladefall of Charthus, Hydrosphere, Crackling Lance. People have done it with Mana Forged Arrows. Get creative with it if you need to. fit it to your build in the way that you want to play the game. And the other thing is that both Coiling Whisper and Forbidden Renaissance, not Forbidden Renaissance, but Whispers of Infinity rather, are attainable via like the new bosses that are super farmable and they're really good drop rate right now. And I say right now because I have a feeling that like next league this will not hold true. These items feel kind of like the mistake they made with like Omni and Ashes originally, where they were these cool, unique items that dropped from a super accessible bosses at a little too high of a rate for how powerful they are. So do not be surprised if next league these are not that accessible. But for now, Whispers of Infinity comes from the incarnation of Dread, and Coiling Whisper comes from the incarnation of Fear. Next on my list of thoughts is I want to actually talk about why you would play a Cultist or a Pathfinder or other Ascendancies, and it's really just these two. Because I think that these two are the main two versions of the character that I really even gave consideration to. Pathfinder looks like it should be the best option for poison. You just get the prolif without needing to use like a Benos or something, and that's really high value for poison characters. Much better than pops tend to be, even though pops are super satisfying. Prolif is just really, really potent. I was going to do poison occultist originally, actually, because I was planning on doing crit regardless. But I never made a version of this character as poison because I got 3 void batteries while 6 linking my chest. So we just went crit, right? It was what it was. Now, as far as why occultist in particular, right? One is I'm just a really big fan of the new Vile Bastion buff. One, being stun immune is comfy. Very, very comfy. But more importantly, being encouraged to lean into block to scale our ES up for survivability and damage also means that we get to use ES on block, which is one of my favorite recovery layers, especially when you have this much ES, right? Like I have over 13k at the moment, and I'm not even close to my ceiling. Having 13k ES, eventually I'm going to get a Shaper Shield with like 5% ES on block, and that is so much ES to recover every time I block. Ooh wee. Also, Forbidden Power. The AoE overlap is AoE increase is actually really nice for consistency of overlaps, and also just +1 power charge when you're power charge stacking. So, right, sounds pretty good. Now, specific to power charge stacking, by the way, you don't actually run the full package in this, right? Like we click the nodes that give us plus power charge, and we click Forbidden Power and we have a Void Battery on, but the rest of the package costs too much ES, right? Can't rare Badge of the Brotherhood and Ralakeshes because Badge of the Brotherhood would take up the next slot that we need for the character, and the boot slot. I mean, I could rare Ralakeshes, but like, why would I if I'm not wearing Badge? I could generate my own power charges. And you're like, oh, but you could use Malachi's Loop. Yeah, I could use Malachi's Loop and give up the massive ES and ES on block shield that I want. Not worth it, right? No need to make this character super class cannon because the damage feels just too high anyways. So we're playing for more survivability. And speaking of survivability, the general thought process is just to get a really big ES pool. That's how we're gonna get our max hit up. By the way, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but I feel like if you like watched any Captain Lance build enough, you'll notice that sometimes big pool is just genuinely enough. Right? If you think about the layering of mitigation that you usually need to do, right? If your character only has 5k life and you get hit by a 20k hit, you need to mitigate all of that damage by over 75% in order to make sure that you live. But if I have 16k pool and there's a 20k hit incoming, that's like 20% that I have to mitigate. And obviously I want to mitigate more, but it's just pointing out that like big pool is actually really good. Then, we layer on some block, which we have already, and we're going to get the ES on block shield eventually. Ailment immunity, which right now is through Purity of Elements, but I'm going to move that to Storm Shroud at some point when I, no longer have to get to be running Purity of Elements. Max Res at some point is going to be really nice, at least through triple purities, maybe with the flask, depending on if I want to use Tides of Time or Mage Blood. But if I go Tides of Time, I'm probably going to do something with the unique class, especially after seeing like, I don't know, the buff to Cinder Swallow and whatnot. There's some really cool things in that area that I want to play around with. Also, other things that are, would be nice. Sorry, defensively, is that we also have Fist taken as chaos, like the implicits on our helmet and body. Very, very nice because we're CI, so that damage just gets converted into the void. It's fantastic. And that kind of like sums up at least like the brief overview, the like brief air quotes overview of the character. I want to go in game and show you some stuff, but before I do, reminder that I do stream. I have not streamed as much this past week. I've been really busy, as I have something coming up that I needed to get prepared for, which also is a good time for me to note that it's gonna look funny. I do have videos that I'll have like be releasing while I'm gone, but they will not be updates to this character for quite some time, and I won't even really be able to make progress over the next week or so for this character because I'm again busy. Don't really want to give out details. I'm a little weary of things of that nature. But like, I'll be busy, so it won't be an update to this character in particular. But I do have some discussion topics coming. Anyways, so on that vein, again, subscribe to the channel, notifications on so you know when it's happening, and or join the Discord, follow me on Twitch and all that good stuff. The deal, so you can actually see it live. Let's get in game so I can actually just kind of go over the specifics of the character as it'll be seen in the PLB anyways. But I just want to highlight a couple more specific things from in game to you. Let's get it. All right, quick rundown. Let's get it. The number one thing on this character, by the way, attributes are absolutely razor thin at the moment. And it has a lot to do with the way that I'm currently set up and my current gear state, but attributes very, very razor thin at the moment. But we're capped. We're CI. We have block that is missing a thing or no, it's not missing anything. I don't think it's missing anything anyways. For some reason, casting increases my spell blocking. I'm not really sure why. Too lazy to figure out why. It's probably something to do with the level on the tree. Otherwise, you'll just see here the gear. It's all in the PLB. It's pretty normal stuff. A lot of problems on it still at the moment. The major thing is you'll notice I have 1, 2, 3 crafted stats at the moment. I'm in massive stat debt, as well as if you look through my jewels, stats, we are in massive stat debt right now. This is a problem that will probably never go away, but it is just like a thing worth pointing out that's a problem that we're solving. Very ugly ways. Technically, this ring is supposed to be solving stats, but I would rather solve stats in other ways than not have this duration. It feels almost night and day how much better it feels. Right? You'll see again. I mentioned the Hex Touch Restoration, which I have 2023 because I evolved my 2020, but the 2020 was good enough. Temp Chains, level one, no quality on both of those, and then Blade Fall of Chartist, which can be whatever. Whatever level 8, whatever quality you want it to be. And then I use Lightning Warp for movement because we're doing the thing anyways. Ideally, these are going to combine into one Super 6 link whenever I craft like the super gloves or whatever. But that will also let me put like Swift Affliction in this link setup and move my Lightning Warp into it, which then means I feel a lot more comfortable not running things like Time Class. But that's that's down the line. We've got other priorities like getting my shield to be better, double crafted suffixes, and not having this isn't a good prefixes to want to slam a Shaper Orb that I don't even have yet. We gotta get that taken care of. Little things like that. Other things about the character that are probably like noteworthy on the tree. Did not mention it in the pre because it's it's more character specific. Rune Growth of the Fortress is 40% defenses, but it also really puts that tax on our attributes, by the way. And Rune Growth of Treachery, since it makes auras from me, like my auras apply to enemies, we guarantee value from this on every enemy because we're running Discipline, which means every enemy has ES, even if they didn't normally have ES. Like bosses always have ES anyways, but this really just makes it clear, like you will have ES, you will take 10% more damage from me, which is really funny. And this is an overall very nice sequence. Otherwise, I feel like a lot of the rest of this is pretty standard. I mentioned the cluster jewels, which I'm trying to fit in a 4th cluster. The 4th cluster is going to come from me, putting it in, and then I think it's taking this crit wheel off and like one other point from somewhere I haven't really said, or like this here might get turned into something. I haven't really decided exactly how I want to get it in there yet, but I know I want to put another proj cluster in. My proj clusters are all streamlined eye to eye. All of my single target I just do from sitting on top of the boss, and streamlined is my proj feed. So we need as much of that as possible right now. Other like upgrades that are incoming for the character. One of the big ones is definitely that I want to get unspeakable gifts on these clusters. You'll see one of them's not even chaos cluster, but getting unspeakable gifts on the clusters will let me ascend, or well, let me drop Profane Bloom in exchange for Withering Presence. That'll be really, really nice once I get to do that, just for more damage. But we're not there yet. It's fine. We're getting there. Other things. Oh, right. I didn't actually mention the clusters in the earlier part of the video. Having an Overwhelming Malice cluster is really, really nice. It gives us our Wither on hit, which means that the Withering step that I have is kind of cosmetic, and I just kind of have it in there because I was using it before I got Unholy Might on my cluster. Very, very, very worth having here, though. It doesn't do nothing else besides to give me Wither on hit. Yes. Does it mean that I get Wither on hit without needing to do anything else for it, though? Also, yes. I think that covers pretty much everything, at least that I could think of. Like when I thought of this before recording, anyways, that I would want to actually talk about with the character. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments down below, or you can hop into Discord or on when I'm streaming, etc. All that stuff. Links to all the things that I just mentioned are down in the description, or in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Peace.